Call this meeting to order. Chairwoman Mary Abufazi is at a speaking engagement, and she will be here as soon as possible, but I will try to do the best imitation of her and run this meeting until she gets here, and we will move accordingly. So next on the agenda is the review and approval of minutes. You have the minutes, a hard copy of them. If there are any comments, questions, amendments, changes, please let us know. Otherwise, a motion to and a second to vote would be spectacular. There's a move from Erwin Vinnick. A second?
I second.
A second. All those in favor of approving the minutes, raise your hands, please, so we can see. Chenma, are you voting yes or no or no? Yes, okay. Okay, so that's a yes for all commissioners here, no no's, no abstentions, and we will keep moving this along. Next on the agenda is the financial update. I turn to you, Davey.
Yes, you have the sheet in your possession, and nothing exciting in that, as I say over and over, the overwhelming majority of our budget is staff. So you can see the February actual totals as they affect the fiscal year. And we are within our budget. In preparation for the upcoming budget, we're having to true up categories and to see whether there's this over or under. We're sure we're under. But this is where we are, so there's nothing exciting or of note in it, unless there's any questions.
Yeah, are there any questions for E.D. Tucker about the budget? Okay. We'll go on to agenda number 5, new business, and the first item under this rubric will be budget requests.
Okay, we sent this out to the executive committee 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it continues to be in flux, but we would ask that you would, not today, but read through it and see, do you understand what it is that we're trying to do and to say, and you can email your comments to me, please. As we're preparing, as this budget now they're asking that we prepare the budget in a 3-year cycle, and that's what this is. We're actually we're asking for 3 positions this year. Again, I feel that we need them. I feel that we have the argument for them, particularly when you look at the advocacy, civil rights, and compliance, the way that continues to grow, and we don't have a staff per se to be able to do that while the agency does something else. Right now, Ashley, since the exit of RJ, has stepped in and is doing, I don't want to say yeoman, that may be a bit misogynist, but it's doing an excellent job of getting us through this process. But if it came down to which one out of the 3, this is one that we're really, really pushing for. But we hope that we may find some grace this year and that they may actually seek to, based on what we would say is our work up to this point. I think we've proven our value to the city as it relates to inclusivics, as it relates to Music City Iftar, Celebrate Nashville, the MLK Day celebration in Nashville. I think we've proven ourselves, even with the people that we have, that a budget increase for us to give us a greater bandwidth to do this work would be needed. So that's how we're going into it, and so we would really want your comments from it. On the front, what will change is our argument here. that we're adding two other elements to this. We're also on the steering committee of the Imagine Nashville project, which is the coming after Nashville Next. But also there's been an increase in anti-DEI positions, not only in Metro, at the state. The AG issued a 7-page letter saying that the Supreme Court ruling abolishes all of that, and his promise to come out and prosecute to the fullest extent. We've even had organizations that we've dealt with in the compliance issue that have not been really accepting of DEI. There's even been a department within Metro that dismantled a DEI department and folded it into HR and changed the name of it. So we feel that that is a real threat. I think we see it not only nationally, we see it statewide, and so naturally it would show up within particularly individuals oftentimes that run departments that run amok of this being something that the city is moving toward. The council approved the community covenant, which reaffirmed a commitment to the values of DEI. The mayor signed this when he was a council person also. So we think that MHRC is uniquely situated to address those concerns because we're often an agency that is in the midst when Metro conflicts with itself. And so we're hoping that this budget year we'll get some type of grace. And again, as we get closer, we will actually need you and your influence to lobby and help us to increase our footprint. But if there's any immediate questions about this proposal, we'll take them. But if over the course of the next couple of weeks, if you would review it, and please send us your questions, and we'll put this back on the agenda for next month. And if you've got comments or whatever, or strategy suggestions, we'd love to hear them.
Thank you, Davey. Is there a specific date you would like comments back from other commissioners?
Well, I mean, 2 weeks to where we can collate them, and so that when we do come back next time, we can share those amongst everybody and then talk about whether or not there's a consensus around them. Because as we get closer to the budget submission, we'll actually be submitting a budget to you to get your approval.
Excellent. Are there any other questions or comments about the budget?
So
Thank you, Davey.
this is the index document? Is that what this?
Well, index is a play on words, kind of like inclusivics. One of the things that we think we can do, as according to what our statute is the education and the promotion is often through measuring stuff. So this is a Mark Etherly, same way we came up with inclusivics, the whole index, which is kind of a play on Nashville. It's hard when it's not mine to argue his, what's the word I'm looking for here? His ingeniousness or his
creativity?
His creativity, or yes.
Well, I guess the reason I was asking is because I didn't see a particular budget document in the materials that were handed out.
Well, if you go, that is it. If you turn the page.
Okay, so
yes.
It's this document.
Yes.
Okay.
And in the way that the budget is submitted, even this is not what you submit. Yeah. The budget is literally submitted on a Excel spreadsheet. And so there's an accompanying document that requires that you argue your budget from an equity standpoint that we fill out as it relates to that.
So has that been put in some form at this juncture?
No, because we haven't submitted it yet. But
Okay.
in this format, based on your comments, we go back through, we make adjustments if there are, but we would ask that you would approve what we're asking here. Because again, the budget format looks like the financial sheet that you get.
Okay.
But we would still need to give you all the reasons why we're asking for these positions and what they'll do and how they correlate with each other. That's what this document is for.
I'm just trying to figure it out. What kind of a percentage increase in the budget is this? It looks like a fairly substantial. if I'm
The
reading it
total
right.
3-year would be about 107% in the course of 3 years. FY25, it would be probably 60%, which we know that's a large, strong ask. But again, we'll attempt to justify why we're asking for this. Our budget is around $750,000. It's been that, except, well, it's actually a little higher, and that's because of the 10-12% cost of living increases and raises that everybody got last year. So that pushed us up around 800,000. But MHRC's budget has been stagnant for years.
Thank you, Davey. Thanks for the questions. Are there any other questions about the budget? Okay, so we'll send these out to all the other commissioners, all commissioners, and then ask for feedback with a deadline of 2 weeks, and we will continue with this process. Thank you, E.D. Tucker. We are going to skip the executive director evaluation until Chairwoman Abolfazi gets here, and then so we'll move on to FUSIS. E.D. Tucker was on This is Nashville with Councilwoman Delisha Porterfield on January 31st, right, of this past week or last week.
Yes.
Can you update on that, please? Thank you.
Just got word an hour ago that it has been pulled totally, that it will not be voted on. They're going to allow the contract to run out, and it will not come back before September. And if it does come back, it'll have to go through the process it should have went through initially, beginning with community engagement, then presentation at council, allow for public comment, and then a vote from council of whether or not to increase surveillance technologies. And so just got that word, don't have all the particulars, but tonight was supposed to be a joint committee meeting between the Budget and Finance and the Public Safety Committee, correct? And so we were leaving to go, as soon as this meeting is over, to go to that, but they won't be making the presentation tonight. So I don't know what they're doing, but we still plan on attending. So that's where the FUSIS is right now, and we'll continue to monitor it in whatever its next iteration is. One of the things that the MHRC has been weighing in for years on the increase of surveillance technologies. I think MHRC also put out a resolution around the LPRs. So we're just continuing this work to be aware of this and to be involved in it. And the LPRs came up at least 3 times and was voted down each time and came back and was passed with a pilot. And it was during that time that Council Member Rosenberg introduced an ordinance, not a resolution, that required that any increase required council approval. This system has been up for a year, and nobody knew about it.
Excellent. Thank you for your work on this. And an update, up to the minute update at MHRC, so everyone tune in for the live broadcast and know what's going on in the city. Thank you for that, E.D. Tucker, and commissioners or the public, if you want to be involved with the question of technology and surveillance, please get involved. And so moving on, there will be no announcements about community engagement. Is that correct? And then now we will go ahead and move to old business, which means that this is the portion about the complaints update.
Okay, I'm going to kick that off and then give it to Ashley. You have a report summary there. And again, I want to applaud Ashley in the work she's done on this up to this point. If you recall, RJ's exit created a gap for us, and Ashley stepped in and has doing a wonderful job. We have a format. We also advised you that through email that as we getting toward the end, that there were questions that we needed answers to, and that the complaint lists Metro Legal as a party also. So we were able to get a late file response through council a couple weeks ago, and to seek outside counsel. And we were able to do that, and we felt it was fitting to get Mel Fowler Green, the former ED of this organization, because of her not only being a attorney herself, but being past ED doing these Title VI investigations. She doesn't have to get up to speed, and she's well aware of a lot of the people and the systems that we're dealing with. So it's good to be working with Mel Fowler Green again. So I'm going to turn all this over to Ashley, and at some point she's going to bring Mel into the conversation.
Hi. So one thing that we wanted to share was, it's not a summary, it's more like a preview of the report, because I know we said at last month's meeting that we were looking at January 19th, I think was the date of when we were hoping to have a report. So some of the things that have changed the timeline a little bit include having 2 more artist grant recipients submit complaints to us. And so I've done additional interviews with 2 more parties. I think I've interviewed another commissioner just today who it took a while to get that scheduled. There might have been 1 or 2 other interviews in the last month. Getting the approval, like Davey said, from the Metro Council for outside counsel's advice took a minute, and we still have some outstanding questions that we have into different parties. And so that being like legal and procurement, we have some questions that we're just waiting for them to answer so that we feel confident with what we are putting together. So those are some of the things that we are still waiting on. So what we wanted to give you was sort of a preview of what you can expect here. So it's 5 pages. Is that right? And it just gives a little bit of background, the framing that we think is important around the very, very briefly, the history of funding in Metro Arts, who's gotten it, who hasn't, some of the work that's been done in the past 5 to 7 years around structural changes to make the agency more equitable. And then a brief description of the complaint as submitted to us. And then we tried to put in a description of what we have labeled as investigation process to really put a container on what we're looking at and what we're not looking at, who we are talking to, and then who we're not talking to, so that we can try to be real clear in people really knowing what this is about, right? We include a list of all the people who have been interviewed up until today. And then on page 5, you see sort of just the skeleton of what the rest of the report is. And so it will include a timeline of events, with the first thing being October of 2022 or so through about right now. So a little bit over a year in that timeline. And then the analysis where we sort of break down what happened in these different categories that are listed there. So maybe I'll ask Mel to talk a little bit about your scope of work, and then we'll open it for discussion.
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to see old friends and make some new ones. My name is Mel Fowler Green. I've been an employment and civil rights attorney for 23 years. Most of that time here in Nashville. For 7 years, I was the executive director for the Metro Human Relations Commission, and was very honored to serve under some of you, including when Executive Director Tucker was actually a commissioner. So it is interesting. I'm kind of potentially uniquely situated to be able to look at a Title VI complaint and parse through what that looks like. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is not a provision of the Civil Rights Act that private attorneys deal with very often. The main reason is that there is no what's called private right of action under Title VI. That means that any alleged violation of Title VI can't be addressed through a court filing, right? You can't file in federal or state court to be made whole for your violations or your alleged violations of Title VI by an entity that receives federal financial assistance. Rather, Title VI has a sort of self-regulating scheme that you can those folks who allege violations can file complaints with the federal agency that has provided the grants that underlie the activities that were engaged in by the entity. They can file with the Department of Justice. And more importantly, those places say you should file locally first with the entity that has been designated by the governmental agency as having the authority to investigate, and resolve Title VI complaints. The theory being that local agencies or entities who are so empowered are going to be in the best position to understand what happened and to figure out the best remedy, right, to make people whole and to suggest and sort of help follow through with any policy or procedural changes that might need to be made as a result of a potential Title VI violation. So here we are. I know all this only because I was the executive director for MHRC. There aren't a whole lot of private attorneys who do this kind of work. So I'm very, very honored to be able to come back and work with you all and bring that intellectual property, things that I gained while I was working for the city. I can bring that to this investigation and on your behalf as your attorney.
If I could slip in right there, we asked her about 4 things to make up the scope of work. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Okay.
Do you want to do it?
No, you do it.
Davey and I work together, have worked together for years, so we might be a little comedy routine here. So the engagement it includes basically 4 major points. I've been asked to provide you all with an opinion regarding confidentiality of Title VI complaints and investigations, right? What kind of confidentiality can be promised or expected, or quite frankly, desired, right, in a Title VI complaint and investigation.
And that's so that we can develop departmental policy that will not only impact this, but guide us as we go forward with having a position about the issues of confidentiality.
Secondly, to review related statutes and case law and advise on whether whether our good friends at the Metro Legal Department are in fact a recipient of federal financial assistance and thereby subject to Title VI obligations.
And I'm adding editorial here. That's a disputed question at this point. So we want Mel to make another opinion about are they or are they not, and we're going to act on that.
And it may very well be just a preview, what I've already looked at and thought through. It may very well be that I can't give you a definitive answer to that question, but rather I can at least lay out, here are the things we would need or you would need to know in order to answer that question definitively. Third, to assist you all with the final compilation of the report that Ashley is working on. I'm not necessarily going to be deep in the weeds in any of the actual investigation. You guys have a really incredible staff, frankly, who've done a very good job at setting up this investigation and following through and with the methodology. So I will be providing some big picture guidance on the legal questions. And I think, and I've told your staff that this is a really potentially good opportunity to educate folks on what Title VI is, right? And what it says and what your role is. So I want to, encourage the inclusion of that kind of information and then to help with like the putting together the final product.
And we felt that was important to us that this format would get looked over by someone. And right now, it's in excess of 30 pages of information. And that's not counting all the interviews have been transcribed. So there are hundreds of pages that have been acquired through this process. But the report draft that we're working off now is over 30 pages at this point. And so hopefully Mel can help us in our distillation of this down to a good report, because what we're really trying to focus on are the actions that led up to the July approval, the executive session, then the August vote to rescind, but also the vote after that in August that protected the status quo. So we're focusing on that span of time and everything that's related to that.
And the fourth and final thing is related basically to all of it, and that is my attendance at important meetings related to the investigation, like today. And certainly my attendance at any presentation to you all of a final report.
Okay, if anybody, back in your hands, Chair, or
I yield the gavel to Chairwoman Abolfazi.
Thank you. Sorry for my delay. Had to support the students in their rally. Thanks for being here, Mel. Thanks for everything, all the presentation on the complaint. It has been an ongoing and intensive process for this team. And every time we talk about it, new layers are added and new expertise is added. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate what it's going to take to finally get it past the finish line. And thank you, Mel, for saying yes to supporting, and Ashley for diving into the whole investigative process. I'm happy to move forward unless there are questions or any concerns that we'd like to bring up while Mel is here or the whole team is up. No, I think everyone, yes, Erwin.
So I'm curious to know whether the scope of your engagement includes answering the question of whether, under what circumstances, Metro Legal can be a respondent to a Title VI complaint.
So, if I understand your question correctly, I think the real question is, if I can reframe it to make sure it is, that we have the,
Well, you can
I'm
try.
understanding it. That is, is Metro Legal an entity that, are they a recipient of federal financial assistance?
No, I
Such
understand.
that they have an obligation to comply with Title VI and can therefore, be named as a Title VI, as somebody, as an entity that can violate Title VI?
Well, I understood that.
Okay.
And I guess my question is, to get into the lawyer type stuff. The question I was really looking at is, assuming one takes all the allegations of the complaint as true, is there a claim to be made against Metro Legal for what it did? Not whether or not it is subject to jurisdiction under Title VI, which is, I think, a different issue and is more fact-based, based upon where the funds come from.
Well, I guess, let me weigh in there, because as the reviewer, the person ultimately responsible for the report, we want to call balls and strikes. If the actions of Metro Legal were a contributing factor to this, we're going to state that claim, whether it's allowable or not, if getting to the point of what you're saying. We're going to call it what it is. And their involvement in it is very important, and I believe it is contributory to the outcome.
Well, I appreciate you telling me that. I may not agree with you on that, and that can be for another day.
Well, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that, but I guess what we're going to make sure that we do with this investigation is, and that's why we've been so thorough, that's why we bring in Mel in at this point. If their actions contributed to it, I think we have a duty and a responsibility to say that. I guess I'm missing what you're saying.
No, you're not missing what I'm saying. I guess my concern is that I want to know if they did anything other than provide legal advice. Because if we're saying that the provision of legal advice can be the basis of a Title VI complaint, I have some concerns about that. One can agree or disagree with the legal advice, and people generally act on the basis of legal advice. But
I guess to your point, if you look on page 5 of what we gave you, inside of some of that, that's where we're trying to get to those questions. Even down to, I think Charles raised it earlier, is as we look at the code that talks about open meetings, there's explicit language there that doesn't seem to apply in this case. That there has to be, we're getting at what I think you're talking about in these issues. So I guess we just need to let that flush a little more.
I'm happy to let it flush. I'm just expressing an overall concern.
And if I might, I hear your concern, and actually I share it, right? The provision of legal advice, can that alone, be a Title VI violation? Like, I understand that's an issue, right? Now, I would say that provision of legal advice in this context might be important to the extent that the respondent, Metro Arts in this case, were to defend their actions in the way that others in civil rights claims, right, the advice of counsel defense, right? Like, to the extent that it's a defense of counsel or an advice of counsel defense, then I'm going to have to say something about that.
That was essentially what I was asking, whether you're
Right.
going to have to say something about that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, yeah, I think I would have to. To the
Okay.
extent that that's their response, then yes.
good, thank you.
Well, so, and I have a question, maybe a follow-up to what Erwin asked, because I guess giving legal advice may be different as long as it's based on something, right? If it's just a statement, that's not based on anything that's legal, I mean, is it really legal advice? And I guess maybe that is also a question that could be raised throughout this whole process. Was advice given based on some legal basis, or was it given based on some other circumstance that surrounded a question that was submitted to legal?
I view my scope of work as including the authority to say, I disagree with the legal advice that was provided, right? That my analysis is different. But until I can't say that I have enough information to really speak to, is the thing that they did, does that fall squarely in advice of counsel? And I'll repeat myself, even if it does, I feel like I have the authority to tell you, as your attorney, that I disagree with that analysis.
Right, yeah, and I understand that. I guess my point would be, to me, it's a thin line of providing legal advice based on me actually doing research and legal analysis to advise someone of a potential outcome. And that's fair for an attorney to have an opinion based on their research and what they've looked at to provide advice, versus maybe a circumstance where an attorney has done no research, has not done any analysis, and just spewed something out and then called it advice. And I don't know if that makes a difference.
I've never done that.
I've never done that either. But you're not an attorney. And if I do it, I will qualify it and say, I'm gonna go look this up and confirm it. Right.
Well, I'm going to be I'm going to be clear, I'm going to be respectful of my fellow bar members, in this process. But, I'm your client. I mean, you're my client. And so I'm going to provide you with the best legal advice I can provide you. Say what?
Now that the lawyers have had fun. Yes,
Here.
yes, always.
So
It's a balanced commission.
Thank you. So I'm just thinking from my viewpoint of how I live life. Did you do it? Yes or no? So when we get into the semantics between the lawyers, I get lost. But are you here to provide us counsel because Matthew can't? And because he works for Metro, I'm being messy again, Matthew, I know that. But is that because he can't give us advice on this particular situation? Would that, is like, what I'm thinking is, we're gonna end up disputing something that legal may or may not have said in this investigation. So I'm wondering, is that why we got, David's a lawyer, we got two over here, and Matthew, and now we got number 5, so.
No, I'm not a lawyer. I know that being a preacher and a lawyer is really close, and that there are some
Right?
overlap there.
We sure like to talk.
Well, no, maybe I can give you a little background. We ask Metro Legal questions about our work as we go along until there seems to be a conflict. And there appears to be a conflict in this issue, of which Metro Legal agrees. So Metro Legal assisted us in filing a resolution to council, recognizing that in this issue, we need outside counsel. And the outside counsel applies to this issue here. And it was voted on and approved, and we retain Mel Fowler Green for this issue. But does that answer your question? Okay, all right.
And I apologize for getting down in the weeds on the legal stuff.
That's why we love our lawyers. It's like Law and Order all over again. Okay, so I want to quickly shift to the evaluation, if that's my orders. Am I correct? That everything else was dealt with on the agenda? Okay, Ben had to leave, but thankfully you are all here, so we still have quorum, so we can move forward. Evaluation. Thank you all that did submit your evaluations, and to those that you couldn't, that's fine as well. We're going to move forward because we've been lingering on this topic for a while. We also undertook conversations with staff, just FYI, so we did a full kind of evaluation. We want to make sure that the health of MHRC is good and that it is in a good shape to grow in the way that the city needs it to. So I will just give you a very brief overview because there were no humongous red flags or anything like that. Again, like you know, there was a grading system that was kind of created. So you could go all the way from, I think it was, 0 to 5. 5 was the best, 0 was you don't know, and 1 was unacceptable. On average, we had about 4s and 5s and a few 3s. 3, we had a few 3s as well, and that also just says consistently meets expectations. So still, I mean, it looks like it's average, but that to me sounds more than average. And then some people were gracious enough to put in some comments. I would say that the comments that were put in are, we'd like to know what's happening a little bit more in advance so that we can show up, so that we can represent, so that we can know, because the commission is, because of how incredible our staff is very busy in a lot of different places, and sometimes we'll find out that day or after the fact. So, and I've seen that that's already sort of being put into place. We did get some emails of updates. I know that that is onerous, so if it's not like a whole written out email, we can think of a system whereby we all kind of know more. And Kati's been doing some pretty intense, or whoever's here has been doing some pretty intense overview of what's coming that we can participate in, and I appreciate that. But I think that's one of the main ones because the commission is being taken very seriously and invited to some very important conversations, just like Davey was on FUSIS last week. And then in general, it was meets expectations and exceeds. Staff conversations were excellent as well. Every leader has growth areas, but primarily they reported a very collaborative and a healthy work environment. So that was really good to hear. I know. That was warming to hear. And since we are working on so many work environment issues, I thought it's important that we walk the walk. And so I want to commend staff and Davey. It seems that you all are walking the walk. Everyone knows that there is open door policy should anything come up. We want to address that. And so I am willing to say as chair that everything looks good. And I'm happy to move forward. If anyone is good with that or has questions or whatever, we can do a motion to approve this evaluation and move on from this 3-month process. Yes, Dakota.
Oh, I was just going to move to approve that.
Oh, excellent. Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay, great. Any abstentions or against? Yes.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, that's fine. That makes sense. That's a new commissioner. And then, so this motion so moves, and you can count on me to continue to make sure that the growth areas that were brought up were in conversation with Davey. But thank you for your work, Davey. It seems like you've created a great place to work, and I hope that it expands. And I hope the budget expands to meet you there.
Well,
but thank you. We acknowledge you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the trust that this commission gives me, and thank you for the candor in your assessment also. Because there are places I can get better.
For sure, for all of us. For all of us. And your staff understands that, and it seems like it's an open door to talk to you about that and have this conversation. So I think that's the best we can ever hope for. Okay, so on that, now I don't have the agenda in front of me. Did we do FUSIS? Did you guys talk about that? Yeah, it's basically been resolved for now? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Anything else? Any public comments? I see public here.
Yes, we have several.
Excellent. So should we get the show on the road?
Do you have the,
The list is up there. I saw it on the table. Oh, and Crystal, one of those things was if we can get notes slightly earlier than the day of the meeting so people can read them and stuff like that as one of the requests. Thank you. Okay, so I've got A.B. Bedrell for the topic is budget request, community engagement. Go ahead, yes, you can go up there. Yep. Thank you for coming.
So my comment is actually in addition to the Metro Arts Commission allegations. So just real quick. So hello, my name is A.B. Badran. I'm a local artist, and I'm here today to talk on behalf of the Metro Arts allegations and how this contributes to the censorship of marginalized artists, especially the censorship of Palestinian and Arab art. Growing up in Nashville, I was brought up in a very creative environment, but the message was conveyed, whether it be through art, writing, or song, that you do not talk about Palestine. Palestinian-American artists Emily Jassir and Samia Halabi have had exhibitions canceled because of their background. Artists and poets alike have been censored, ignored, and even fired from organizations such as the Poetry Foundation and Art Forum magazine for speaking out against the inhumane acts carried out in Gaza today. More than 2,000 artists around the country have called for the boycott of these organizations until such time as they have demonstrated that they are on the side of humanity. This censorship expands beyond affecting Arab artist communities as well as other artists of color, queer and trans artists, artists with disabilities, and so on and so forth, in regards to speaking out against injustices. As a Palestinian American artist living in Nashville, I too have been censored in my work and everyday life. Because of a post-9/11 rhetoric, I have been accused of terrorist activity at a young age just for stating that I am Palestinian. Loved ones of mine have been accused of anti-Semitism just for existing as we are. Not only am I asking you to reconsider in terms of how you are viewing these allegations, but to also consider investing in the voices of our community that already struggle to be heard enough already. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Christine Hall.
Hi, thank you. I am Christine Hall, a local artist and advocate, community organizer with Arts Equity Nashville, here to express appreciation today. And I first want to give that to the previous public commenter. Thank you so much. And I want to express my full love and support for the Palestinian people. Yeah, thank you. So I want to thank the Metro Human Relations staff and commission for the work you're doing, specifically as it pertains to the Title VI complaint report and the investigation you've conducted. It is such meaningful, momentous, and timely work. It translates to actual meaning in the community, demonstrable material meaning, as I'm sure you've seen throughout the investigation. But I just specifically want to say, for there to be a government body here that is actually interested in honest and dedicated representation of people of Nashville, of the interests that we share in our hearts, that you bring this to the forefront and you speak to these issues on a human level, that you're interested in addressing these and in promoting accessibility and accountability in our government, and specifically that you are interested in recognizing where one department or party of an office might be using the auspices of a title as a guise for informed authority to cover implicit bias or special interests, to expose that. to promote transparency. I want to thank you again.
I hope we do all that. That was a huge acknowledgement. I appreciate that. Definitely towards the staff. And yes, thank you for the previous commenter for coming and saying those brave words. Okay, I have Craig. Yes. Craig Pardo, thank you. Struggling with the. No, I'm bad at reading handwriting.
So my name is Craig Bardo, and local Nashville resident. And today is a day for affirmation, it seems, because I'm here to thank you for the work that you're doing. I learned a little bit about that at the last Metro Council hearing when I met the executive director, which is part of why I'm here. There I spoke in the public comment period with respect to FUSIS. And your work here has helped to at least table this surveillance panopticon Orwellian nightmare for a little while, so thank you for that. I am also, I think that you all are all very aware of the interrelatedness of these concerns that are brought to you. I first began to become interested in speaking in December after seeing so many Palestinians murdered in Gaza. And I spoke in December at the Metro Council, and FUSIS came up, and these things are just on and on and on. And so I want to affirm you, thank you, and to share my appreciation for the work that you're doing, and I hope that you continue.
Yes, thank you so much. Angel Stansberry.
Good day, and I would like to thank the council for simply existing as a woman of color, a Caribbean woman in Nashville. This FUSIS bill is tabled, but it's not gone, so I just want to share a few thoughts on that. My issue is that most police departments who have implemented FUSIS have at least had a policy draft. And many have FUSIS-specific policies, standard operating policies, SOPs, or CALIA, commission-accredited policies that cover FUSIS. And as much as I hate the LPR and the fact that it's been enacted, even that mechanism had an attached draft policy prior to its pilot release. But here, MNPD rolled out this FUSIS thing in September 2022 with no attached policy, draft or otherwise. They sole sourced and greenlighted it with zero Metro Council oversight, being sure to make the contract below the $250,000 benchmark so as to avoid said oversight. Now, a year and a half later, not only is there still no policy or draft, there is no mention of FUSIS surveillance on a single Metro Code provision, not even on the one you would expect it to be on, which is 13.08.080. I refuse to live in a police state where I'm constantly and unconstitutionally surveilled in both public and private spheres, particularly by the same MNPD that has no less than 28 internal allegations of sexual conduct on record. I refuse to be surveilled by Tennessee officers who just last June trained with Georgia officers in Israel alongside IOF soldiers, apartheid forces who are currently engaged in a brutal, theocratic, and ethnocentric siege on an innocent Palestinian people, and for 75 years. Now, as John Drake plans out our own Nashville Cop City, we are told that it is supposed to span over 800 acres, I'm sure with unspeakable environmental degradation tied to that, and cost the city $415 million. Nashville rejects this Orwellian intrusion into our rights to privacy. And as a third-year law student, I'll spare you the legal ramifications of that. Also, I'm barred from giving legal advice until I take the bar next February. But I ask you to please consider not renewing or expanding this contract. We can put this money into education and healthcare, which instead of making this a police state, much like the West Bank and Gaza. So to conclude, we just need to end our police state here, and we need to end our police state occupations in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and free Palestine and Yemen from U.S. hegemony. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Lydia, Yusuf. I almost also signed in, if it's any conciliation. And the last name I can, is it you, Simone? Okay, that's the last of the public comment, unless there's anything else. Okay, great. Thank you all for showing up on a Monday at 4 o'clock to participate in our meeting. I hope that more people get to watch it online and engage than are here. Other than that, I don't know if there's any announcement from the commission. Usually you've got some, yes?
Wrong one. Okay. Notwithstanding the elements of the Arts Commission complaint, I would encourage everyone who can to go to the Frisk Museum to see the current exhibit, Southern Modern. It is a very powerful exhibit of art primarily generated up until 1950, and it is quite good.
Excellent, thank you for that plug. Yes, go for it, Kosar.
Just want to thank you all again for sharing your public comments. And I apologize also if this is redundant. I know I wasn't able to make it to the last couple meetings. But I think I just wanted to reiterate the points that were made and how it's been just increasingly, I think, seeing the censorship of, just Palestinian voices, pro-Palestinian voices as well, and seeing how there's been sort of a crackdown from, universities, from, job markets, and, typically, or I think the typical sort of like rebuttal is, we don't deal with sort of international, conflicts, but, which I always, hate, because, it always is personal. There are, Palestinian Americans living here and Palestinian Nashvillians living here, who are experiencing, grief and loss. And then, just seeing sort of the Red Scare, again, the Orwellian, sort of themes that we're now seeing here in Nashville, people getting fired for simply just stating, asking for a ceasefire, asking for, just a humanitarian pause, which are the bare minimum. I don't know, and I know other cities have been tackling this with, their own resolutions and initiatives, and I don't know if Nashville has been able to do that or take lead on that, but I definitely do sort of want to just emphasize the importance of, just advocating and making sure that, when we say, we value free speech, that we do in all contexts, even the speech that people, that you may not agree with, it is very, very important, and would definitely love, to see a more proactive role from, the mayor, the council, on this specific matter.
Dakota, your light's on, is that intentional? Okay. Thanks for that, Kosa. I don't know if there's anything you want from an action from the commission, or just more a statement that we need more from Nashville.
I think definitely maybe trying to urge I think just the council and also the mayor to I think just just reiterate the values of just free speech and ensure that people aren't being fired for, and aren't being censored for their positions and for, basic human rights. And so I don't know if that's, requires a statement from the Metro Human Relations Commission, or if that requires, groups, going to city council and urging, for resolutions or whatnot. But I definitely do think that there should be some sort of tangible things, because it's happening in public schools, from students that I know who have felt censored. It's happening at, local universities, and also in the workplaces. So it's something that's definitely not a matter, that's important to Nashville and Nashvillians.
I think there are some efforts in this in the council, but I'm not sure. We can check into it and see if there's any momentum with it. You had a public comment. You might have to go back up to podium. I don't know.
I just wanted to respond to what he said.
Okay.
There has been efforts to bring a ceasefire resolution. However, they have already denied 3 pro-Israeli resolutions. So now they're in a rough position, so they can't put the ceasefire resolution on the agenda. We have been going there and speaking out on FUSIS and tying in the Palestinian issue just to get it on the record. But they absolutely have basically told us that they will not bring up that resolution because they've taken a hands-off international issues position.
I would certainly support expressions concerning free speech. There's certainly been enough death on all sides here that we can't tolerate on all sides, and certainly would support something along the lines that people shouldn't be subject to adverse employment actions based upon their speech, regardless of what side of the aisle and what side in this particular position they take. But my sense is it needs to be even-handed.
Madam Chair, bright idea. Would Kozar and Commissioner Venick want to work on a statement? I think you two are uniquely situated that if y'all can come away with something, it would probably live in a lot of places.
Happy to.
Sure.
Yes. Yes, Craig.
Thank you for your indulgence. I intended to say this, which is why it's important to write things down. Again, I'm affirming the importance of your work here. One of the things that I witnessed was the first meeting of what was the Community Oversight Board this year. It was like a funeral. I mean, it was a funeral of what happens, what can happen, what the threats are. Your voices and the work that you do here is critical. It's now in, community review board. The mayor promised to send someone to the meeting, did not happen. The police chief was supposed to show up or send a representative, did not happen. 135 members of this community voted in support of a community oversight board that had teeth. The state stripped it. Your voices are critical in even the smallest ways. So from someone who has decided to become involved in civic engagement, I thank you. You're going to hear more from me because I've decided, and I've got grandchildren and other reasons, but thank you, and please stay involved with all of those issues.
procedurally, in order to comply with open meetings, how do we go about?
If you would funnel through me, and I'll funnel back out to both of you. And again, correct me if I'm wrong here, Matthew. This is not a deliberation. This is the preparing of a statement. Is there, help me parse this.
Isn't there two ways we could do this? Like, if, you could send it to the staff could send it to COSAR.
I want to be funneled.
But also, you can come to the XCOM and talk about it, if you need to talk about it. But like, if you had a draft or you had a draft, I believe the individual can send it to staff can send it back to the other person can review it, think about it, send thoughts back to staff, and staff can send it to the person. But if you actually need to discuss it, I think you have to do it at XCOM.
Yes, I think also I would be careful though about outside of an open meeting if they're seeing, if they're seeing each other's comments and they're kind of, because that could be construed as deliberating towards a decision. I mean, the board ultimately will vote to approve this letter. So that's business of the board. And if I just, if it's funneled through, as long as they're not having direct communication, that's fine. But if they're seeing each other's comments, and even if it's kind of going through an intermediary, I think that's close to deliberating back and forth. I would just be advised of being careful of that outside of an open meeting. I would recommend that any of that discussion take place in a publicly noticed meeting.
I was wondering, and don't want to add to more work to the team, but I guess if Erwin and I can maybe, individually write, languages, send it to you all, and then you all kind of draft it from,
we can do that.
from the two, yeah.
We can do that. And yes, that is additional work, Commissioner Kosar, but we're up to that. And then I would also reiterate the chair's suggestion that if this is something that you want to do to present to the larger commission, that you come to the executive meeting and you all can debate that out.
We're not going to debate. We're going to work on it together.
Collaborate.
Synthesize.
And if the staff gets the essence and spirit of both messages, then maybe the collaboration will be short and sweet. You guys are great at that. Okay.
One comment.
Yes.
Well, two. We have a group of commissioners that are rolling off, and we have one that is recently resigned. So any thoughts that you have about potential commissioners that would fit this work? And again, I've always said that this work needs a person that's interested in it, because there's a myriad of places to intersect, whether it's housing, feeding, wages, there's tons of issues, but that folk are committed to bettering society in whatever way, that we'd love to have those suggestions. And for some of you with your own spheres of influence, to contact the mayor's office, and also let us know, as we will try on our ends to try to make sure that we continue to get people that are interested in this work. These are all council. Oh, that's right. These are all council nominees. So they would need to go to the council.
I was going to say, there is a form online. Is that what they're supposed to fill out? No. Okay.
No, because see, they're going to go through this voting process the way, when it's the council, they do this tiered voting. It's hard to explain that. Yes.
Okay, so May is when we'll hopefully have new commissioners. And so sort of working backwards, the vice mayor who presides over the meetings will make an announcement at one meeting. Next week, or the next meeting, we'll have 4 slots for MHRC nominees. Council members, bring your nominations. The next meeting, they'll stand up, they'll say, I nominate so-and-so, and then the next meeting, they'll vote. So it's a process over 6 weeks that will lead up to our first meeting in May. So it's when council members can really champion people that they want to see on boards and commissions, with ours being the one for May.
That's excellent.
Yeah, so contacting your council
Their council
person.
members, yeah. Okay, that's great, because people have asked.
Just another thing to put on the radar, many of you seen that there'll be 6 zoning bills that Raleigh Horton and Evans Siegel council members have filed. And this is part of the addressing the lack of what's being called middle housing. And so this is the first major rehab or redo of Metro codes in a long time. And we need to be involved to make sure that there are not going to be any unintended consequences, that this makes the city more inclusive and not more exclusive. And so as we go along, we're going to send you information on those bills and try to put together some type of positional statement as it relates to them. This, I believe, has the potential over time to begin to address this middle housing issue. And if it addresses the middle, it addresses the bottom, in that the bottom now has nowhere to go. And so I think this is going to be a critical thing for our city to work through. And I would hope that MHRC would want to be a voice in that.
I have a quick question going back to the nominations. Do the council members need to nominate someone who resides in their district, or can they nominate anyone?
They can nominate anyone, but the discussion that we've been hearing is council members want to know and want to nominate folk out of their districts, and they want to know when commissioners are presented for approval if they're from their districts. So that's kind of that answer there.
Okay, great. Then with that, I think we've covered everything, so I can take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'm not the motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second? Anybody against or abstain? Excellent. Then our meeting today is adjourned. Thank you for all your hard work, and thank you all for coming.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.